Welcome back. Today we are going to turn our sketches into 3 finalized sketches. So the first step we need to do is look at all the sketches you did last time. These are the ones I did, and pick 3 that you want to be the ones that you put more effort into. So I really liked this sketch, I liked this sketch, and I liked this sketch. After you pick your 3, we need to put them on a new layer. So I'm going to switch to Pixel Persona. We're going to discuss layers. So the way layers work is they're like different pieces of paper with art on each piece of paper that are layered on top of each other. So I'm going to look at this artboard right here. So I've got my pixel layer and my rectangle. My rectangle is what gives me this dark background, and you can see if I move these around, my sketches will stay in place, but I can move around my background. That's how layers work in a nutshell. So if you select your pixel layer, and then select this lasso tool, this will allow you to draw a circle around something. So I'm going to draw a circle around this axe, and you can see that now if I switch to the move tool, I can move my axe around to wherever I want it. What I want to do is come over here to this workspace right here. I'm going to disable those, and I'm going to take this axe and drag it over here to this artboard. I'm going to cut it, create a new pixel layer, and paste it so that way it's included on this artboard. I will drag it over here and scale it up. If you have something selected and you need to deselect it, you can either go to select, deselect, or Control D is the shortcut. We're going to do this for each of the designs that we like. So I'm going to go back to my pixel layer. I'm going to lasso this axe as well. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to come over here to this layer. I'm going to paste it in. Switch to my move tool, and I can just drag on these corners here to scale it up. After you have your 3 axes, what we're going to do is we're going to select these 3 layers and we're going to turn their opacity down. That is this slider right here. This will just make them fainter, so that way we can draw on top of them and use these as a guide. Then we're going to go ahead and draw our axes. Focus again on your wrist and elbow motions. You want to get smooth lines. This process will take a while. I'm going to include a time skip where I do this. And here you can see my axes with both the squiggly outline This is my sketch layer, and then the final line art. And if you notice, some of the axes I made some changes. So I added a circle, I changed the angle, I changed the handle completely of this one, changed the way the wood, added straps to it. So you can add stuff in as you feel like it'll add more to it. And then you are left with this. So this is our line art done. Our next step is to add in basic coloring and basic shading. So there's two options to do this. You can either just paint everything in. The way you would do that is you would create a new pixel layer, select your paintbrush, choose a color instead of black, and just color in whatever color you want it. That is certainly one option to do if you like your line art. However, I like to use a vector method for this. So we're gonna switch over to our designer persona, and we are going to use our pen tool and our pencil tool in order to make this. So we're gonna start off with this axe over here. What we're gonna wanna do is create a new pixel layer, create a new vector layer. That's gonna be this button right here. And then we're going to click, you can turn off snapping if you need to. This is gonna be this little magnet icon in the top. We're gonna click here, and we're gonna click here, and we're gonna kinda click along our art. Now, if you uncheck this use fill button, you'll just see a line. You can change our stroke width to be 1 or something like that. I'm gonna leave it on the blue color so it's easy to tell what is what. And now you will notice I like to work in sections for this. The way I decide my sections are based off of elements. So I know that I want this sharp edge to be one color. So I'm just gonna kind of loosely follow that shape. I can use layers to make certain things appear visible or not. Now, what's going on with these straight lines? Well, we don't have to worry about that, so we can just switch to our node tool and we can just fix those lines. So we can just drag them to where we want. I'm doing this by clicking on the line and then just dragging to where I want it to be. I can even do the same thing with these edges. I like to add a slight curve to my chips. And there we go, we have our shape. We're just gonna repeat this process for all other parts of our drawing. So I'm gonna come over here. This one is going to more closely mirror and go all the way across here. Don't worry about inside lines like this. We can get that with special effects later on. If you have a curve that curves one way and then curves the other way, you're gonna want to put a point in the middle so that way you can have two different shaped curves. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect. The beautiful thing about vector art is you can just easily change it whenever you want to. So I'm gonna get these lined up. I'm gonna put a time skip in as I continue to work on this. You can click any node to give you the ability to modify the curve with these little handles. If you hold down Alt, for instance, I'm gonna select, let's say I put one in right here. I just clicked on the line to add one. If I move this right here, you can see how it's changing both sides. If you don't want that, if you hold down Alt on the keyboard, you can just change one side. Again, you can slightly vary from your line art if you choose, but you don't need to. That's personal preference. Depends on if you want your line art to be in your drawing at the end or not. Because I will be using layers, I don't have to be super precise with some of these things. So if you notice this top wood, I just have it extend inwards because I'm perfectly a-okay with that. Vector art is also very good for if you're using a mouse. So I'm using a mouse for all of this, whereas I used a drawing tablet for the rest of the work. You just have to click, you don't have to do anything special for it. Wood being fairly organic, I want to make sure that it doesn't have that many hard edges in it. So for instance, let's say I just want to round this. If I select this point, I can come up here to these convert buttons. This will make it into a sharp corner. That will be a smooth corner, and Smart uses an algorithm to try and guess at what you want. I normally don't use Smart though. I normally just use sharp and the smooth corner. I'm not going to worry about the hatching on the handle quite yet, so that's going to be a very intricate part. I'm going to get this little circle though. For the circle, I'll just use the circle tool. Disable the fill by selecting fill up here and clicking that little X. So we just have our line. And now if I hide my line art, I have my general shape of my axe. Now I can start selecting things, changing their orders, and adding actual color to it. So this is going to be the sharp part of my blade. So I want this to have a color that's kind of light grayish. I'll change the stroke to black because I like the idea of having a slight stroke on it. Then I will select my other curve right here. This is going to be a darker metal. So I'm going to choose something darker like that. And if you notice, my curve here needs to swap positions, so that way it is on top. While I'm at it, I know I want this circle over here. And this circle, I want this to be cut out of this shape. So you can do something called a Boolean equation for this. So if I select my circle, then shift select that shape, these options up here become available to me. I'm going to want the minus option, so it subtracted that circle from that shape. Then on this like this, I want this to be a wood color. So I'm going to choose something vaguely brownish. And we're going to do the same thing over here. And here we have a basic colored in version of our axe. If you want to mask change anything, you can shift select a bunch of things and then come over here to the strokes tab or the color tab, and you can change the color of all the line art at once. So for instance, I made everything black here. So we're going to want to repeat this process for our other axes. If you ever need to delete a point, you can by just selecting the point and pressing delete on the keyboard. After you create an axe, it's sometimes useful to group them together. So I'm going to select everything to do with my first axe here. And I'm going to hit Control G for group. And now I have it all as one object. I'm going to do the same thing for my second axe. Now that we have finished our axes, we are done for today. Next, we will be going over how to add in texturized effects to make them appear higher quality, as well as add some tactile feel to them. If you want to though, if this is an art style that you like, you can just completely go with these for your game. I do advise if you want to keep your line art, you can just drag your line art to the top above the layers of the axes themselves, and you will have your visuals. Now I did notice one thing I did wrong in my prehistoric axe is I have the order of this swapped. It should be like this. I hope you found this video interesting. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons and comment below if you have any questions. I will see you in the next one.